And, there's been a lot of speculation and chatter about the adaptation and, what's happening and why it's taken so long. And I'm just excited that they're now going to get to see what we've been working on for 5 years and the love and the care and the respect that we have for the source material and for them. Because if it were not for them, we wouldn't be here in a position to release this film. So this is a love letter to them at the end of the day. But directing is a very complicated job. You have to hold the entire vision of the movie in your head and then find ways to communicate it and get everybody on the same page. And then acting is its own animal. Acting, especially with a role like Ryle, with complex, deeply painful, disturbed man, it's very hard. And there were many times, throughout the course of the movie where it was challenging. And as a director, it's my job to navigate all the personalities and to figure out how to get us all in the same direction. And yet those challenges are also beautiful. And we work together to create this beautiful piece of art. And I'm proud of it. And I believe that the cast is proud of it, and Colleen's proud of it, and I hope at the end of the day that the fans will be proud of it.
Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. So I just wrapped up a video about Justin Baldoni and the major win in court. The judge refused to stay discovery for Leslie Sloan, which is a really great sign. Even more interesting, the judge pointed to a previous case as a precedent for denying the request, signaling that this case is moving forward. In that case, the person had also filed a strong motion to dismiss, yet the judge still denied it, allowing discovery to proceed. But now, I have some brand new information. Justin and Wayfair are officially suing Stephanie Jones. I was waiting for this to happen. I just had a gut feeling it was coming. It always felt like Stephanie Jones was deeply involved in this entire situation. Whatever she was doing behind the scenes as Wayfair's former publicist, it seemed to have played a huge role in how everything unfolded. And now, it turns out Justin is filing a countersuit against her. Yesterday was a major deadline in the case. Every party involved had to submit their responses to the various lawsuits. Justin not only filed his response, but also submitted this counterclaim, and here's how it all breaks down. The case is officially titled Wayfair Studios versus Stephanie Jones. Jones Works is a well-known New York-based public relations firm, founded by Stephanie Jones, who also served as its CEO. Within the PR industry, Stephanie had built a reputation for her signature Southern twang, aggressive strategies, and a high turnover rate of both clients and employees. Despite that, she had a very successful career in entertainment, working with massive names like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, Venus Williams, Tom Brady, and Chris Hemsworth. She's also married to Jason Hodes, a partner at William Morris Endeavor, one of the most powerful talent agencies in Hollywood. Together, they've been considered a true Hollywood power couple. Around 2020, Wayfair hired Jones Works to handle strategic communications and public relations. They entered into a contract, and what's particularly interesting is that this contract included a strict confidentiality clause. The clause explicitly stated that throughout their engagement, Wayfair might share confidential, proprietary information with the company. And here's something really interesting. Their contract had a confidentiality clause that laid out exactly how sensitive information should be handled. According to this agreement, any confidential information regarding the client, their customers, or any related parties had to be protected. The company was required to use reasonable and diligent efforts to keep everything confidential. However, there was a stipulation. The company could disclose information to third parties if it was absolutely necessary to fulfill its obligations under the agreement, or if required by law or a court order. That last part is key because it seems to be why Stephanie Jones and her team keep arguing that she had a subpoena under the contract. If a legal authority required it, she might have been obligated to hand over confidential information. Another important detail in the contract is that if there were any disputes, they had to be settled in New York through litigation. That's significant because this entire lawsuit is now unfolding in New York courts. Now, this specific lawsuit isn't hundreds of pages long, and it doesn't include a ton of new screenshots. However, we've already seen most of the key screenshots in earlier filings, so we know the general picture. The lawsuit essentially gives a breakdown of how Justin Baldoni got the rights to this film and how everything evolved from there. At first, the book gained moderate popularity, but then BookTok, which has the power to catapult books to viral success, made it explode in popularity. Once the book became a massive hit, Wayfair saw an opportunity and partnered with Sony to co-finance and distribute the film, making this a much bigger production. Wayfair and Baldoni felt a deep sense of responsibility to do justice to Hoover's work and meaningfully capture the experience of Lily Bloom. They carefully cast Blake Lively for the role, fully trusting her to bring that vision to life. However, for reasons that are now widely known, that choice turned out to be a major mistake, one that would have serious consequences. Without diving into the full sequence of events, which are now at the center of active litigation, Lively ultimately took control of the movie, hijacked the premiere, and actively worked to damage the personal and professional reputations of Baldoni and the Wayfair team. It appears to be a deliberate attempt to drive Wayfair out of business entirely. I mean, I've said this before. They want her out, they want him out, and in my opinion, it's because they're a competing production company. That's just my take on it. But for the purposes of this case, what's clear is that Wayfair and Baldoni had significant public relations needs in the summer of 2024, before, during, and after the film's premiere. And at least he's now openly acknowledging that hiring Blake Lively was a massive mistake. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Around this time, Stephanie Jones, seemingly in the midst of a downward spiral, and I love how they phrase this like a dramatic novel, decided to create unnecessary drama, stir up chaos, and fuel conflict. She started acting out for what appears to be her own self-interest, refusing to follow direct instructions, undermining the team, and eventually terminating Jones' Work's primary contact at Wayfair. Instead of solving problems, she created new ones, making the situation worse for everyone involved. Her behavior completely ruptured her relationship with Wayfair, Baldoni, and the entire team, making it impossible for them to continue working together. It became absolutely clear that any future engagement with her or Jones' Works was simply not an option, and it gets even deeper. Later, Wayfair and Baldoni discovered just how much malice Jones had been harboring toward them the entire time. For nearly 4 years, her work for Wayfair and Baldoni had been managed by Jennifer Abel out of Jones' Works' Los Angeles office, and as time went on, more shocking details began to emerge. Abel formed a strong and trusting bond with Boney Wayfair, CEO Jamie Heath, and the rest of the team, especially as their strategic communications became even more complex in 2024. By that time, during Wayfair's 4-year relationship with Jones' Works, it was clear that Jones didn't exactly prioritize them. She made no secret of the fact that she considered them a lower prestige client, focusing more on high-profile names like Jeff Bezos and Tom Brady. But by July 2024, things weren't looking great for Jones. Her firm, Jones' Works, was losing both clients and key team members. At the same time, she found out that Business Insider was working on a less than flattering piece about her, set to be published sometime in August. On top of that, her reputation, at least from what she believed, had taken a major hit from the Stephanie Jones Leaks website and social media accounts. Desperate to hold on to her remaining clients, she was scrambling. Around that time, Abel decided to resign from Jones' Works and start her own firm. Given Abel's close connection with Wayfair, Bon and Boney, Jones was understandably worried that they might follow Abel out the door, and she wanted to make sure that didn't happen. Meanwhile, Wayfair was in the middle of a serious PR crisis. Stories had started circulating, speculating about tension between Lively and Boney, mostly because the cast had suddenly stopped following Boney on social media right before the film's big premiere. Sensing trouble, Jones jumped into action. She began showing up to meetings, making calls, and sending emails, all in an effort to reestablish her authority over the account and prove her commitment to Wayfair. Around this time, Wayfair and Ballon asked Abel to recommend a crisis management expert. Abel checked in with Jones first, but Jones didn't have any solid ideas. So Abel suggested bringing in crisis specialist Melissa Nathan, someone she had worked with before and trusted completely. Nathan's expertise was needed more than ever, especially since Lively was demanding that Boney be banned from attending the premiere. There was even a risk that Belden would be left out of the press junket entirely, which could have been a huge PR nightmare. So the team braced for impact, knowing the optics weren't looking great, and that they needed to be ready for whatever came next. During Abel's first meeting with Nathan, she got some troubling news. According to one of her media contacts, a damaging story was already being pitched to multiple outlets. It framed Bond's religion as a cult and even accused Boney of fat-shaming Lively, just because he had privately asked her personal trainer about her weight due to his ongoing back pain issues. Even though that context was missing, the rumors were already spreading fast. Abel was confident Nathan was the right choice, though she knew Jones wouldn't be happy about it. Jones saw Nathan as a competitor and had a habit of bad-mouthing her to anyone who would listen, including Nathan's own clients. Out of sensitivity to that tension, Abel advised the Wayfair team to keep their options open and make a decision after meeting Nathan themselves. She worried about backlash from Jones, but still believed Nathan was the best fit. Oh, Melissa, Nathan almost got thrown into the fire here. Maybe she should have picked someone else, but who knows? When Jones found out Wayfair was considering Nathan, she was absolutely furious. She lashed out at Abel, pressuring her to badmouth Nathan to prove her loyalty. At first, Abel resisted, but after Jones called her crying and screaming, she gave in, though only slightly. She made some minor negative comments to placate Jones, but that wasn't enough. Jones then took it a step further, using confidential client information to sabotage Nathan's chances with Wayfair. Pretty wild, right? It seems like someone was already shopping a negative story before this so-called smear campaign even started. By July and August 2024, Jones was back in the mix, openly trying to push both Nathan and Abel out. The problem? She had purposely stayed out of leadership's communications and decision-making, always claiming she was too busy with high-profile clients. Wayfair didn't mind her absence since Abel had been their go-to advisor. They weren't interested in getting dragged into Jones's office drama. She had been in Europe, as you probably know, but then she swooped back in, stirring up chaos and undermining Abel's authority. Leading up to the film's premiere, Lively and Baldwin's teams agreed to a truce. But later, they found out Lively's team had already broken it. The Wayfair team had no clue. At least from their perspective, it was still best for Boney. Both sides had agreed to keep the peace regarding Lively in the film, though the Wayfair team had only been acting in defense, responding to press inquiries. But on August 8th, in yet another desperate move to stay relevant, Jones reached out to a Daily Mail reporter about a past article on Boney and Lively. This was a direct violation of Abel's strict instruction, given Wayfair's truce with Lively's team, not to engage with the press. Regardless, Jones shamelessly bragged to Wayfair about her phone calls with the Daily Mail, hoping to appear involved in the account. Nathan and Abel were then left to deal with the inevitable fallout. Jones's blatant disregard for the agreed-upon strategy set off a series of unfortunate consequences. Sloan and Sony soon discovered that someone from Boney's team had been feeding negative information to the media. It was obviously Jones. Wayfair's leadership was livid, as was Sony. With the film's release just around the corner, no one wanted a full-blown media war between Lively and Boney. But thanks to Jones's reckless, unauthorized interference, that risk had just skyrocketed. In response, leadership made a swift decision. Jones was instructed to step away from all activities related to Wayfair and Boney immediately. Abel, along with another Los Angeles-based JonesWorks employee, Matthew Mitchell, would handle things, moving forward alongside Nathan. Soon after, Nathan started hearing from other journalists that Sloan was pushing negative stories about Boney. The impression? That Boney's camp had broken the truce. Panic set in. Anxious Sony executives began reaching out to Wayfair for clarity, hoping to get ahead of a PR disaster. But instead of helping, Jones, terrified of being blamed, flat out refused to be singled out. She insisted she had to contact Sony and Lively's PR teams to clear her name, denying any involvement in planting negative stories. Heath warned her not to interfere, but Jones fired back, claiming she could do whatever she wanted to protect her reputation and that Wayfair had no right to stop her from making calls. Desperate to salvage her standing with Lively and Sony, Jones made a last-ditch effort. She emailed key Sony executives working on the film, claiming she was in Europe with her husband, Jason Hodes, and shifting all the blame onto her own team. In her attempt to save face, she only made things worse. Jones completely ruptured her relationship with Wayfair and Boney. Even though she eventually agreed to step back, the damage was already done. Wayfair and Boney had lost all trust in her. After parachuting in for self-serving reasons, nearly blowing up the truce with Lively's team, and lashing out when told to stop, she had become a magnet for drama. But instead of stepping away quietly, she started bombarding them with relentless emails, pushing ideas and unsolicited advice. You've seen this kind of behavior before in previous lawsuits. She told them to flood the narrative with positive stories, promote alternate angles, and control the messaging. She acted like she was still the crisis manager, forwarding emails from journalists asking for comments. Jamie repeatedly told her to stop, making it clear they didn't need her help. For an entire week, this back and forth continued. Then, on the 21st, Jones Works abruptly fired Jennifer Abel, confiscated her phone, and marched her out of the Los Angeles office. The Wayfair CEO immediately reached out to Jones, deeply concerned about what had just happened. But Jones brushed it off, reminding him that Wayfair had an exclusive contract with Jones Works. She then sent a lengthy email, one we've discussed before, where she emphasized, "We have an exclusive contract with you through May 2025. You hired a crisis PR firm to handle all crisis-related matters. If you now want our help, we absolutely can and will." But here's where it gets even wilder. Just hours after firing Abel and seizing her phone, Jones accessed confidential information about Wayfair and Baldoni. Then, without any court order or subpoena, she sent it directly to Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's publicist. And based on available information, she likely shared it with other third parties as well. That same day, Sloan contacted Nathan casually, revealing that she had seen her private texts about Lively, texts that could only have come from Abel's phone. Not only that, Sloan gloated, warning Nathan that she should expect to be sued. Did you catch that? The document explicitly states, "On information and belief," that Jones shared this sensitive information without any lawful court order. That means she handed over private text messages the very same day she obtained them, completely violating confidentiality agreements. I mean, what? Your team is supposed to have your back, not betray you like this. Absolutely unbelievable. They're not supposed to be actively trying to destroy you just because you don't want to work with them anymore. If this is how Jones operates, I'd be seriously worried for any of her clients. She had a duty to protect confidential information, especially when she was under a formal agreement with them, and getting paid $20,000 a month to do so. As September approached, Wayfair and Boney, with the help of Abel and Nathan, kept pushing forward. Their focus remained on promoting the film, handling any PR fires, and making sure the project crossed the finish line successfully. Jones, however, was simmering with jealousy toward Abel and stewing in resentment toward Boney and Wayfair for losing confidence in her. Instead of moving on, she voluntarily reached out, completely on her own, to Lively's team, seemingly offering what she believed was ammunition against Wayfair, Baldoni, Abel, and Nathan. She handed over reams of Abel's private communications, documents that, with a little unscrupulous massaging, some creative slicing and dicing, and a complete lack of context, could be twisted into a false and damaging narrative about them. What better way to hit back? These people work in PR. They know exactly how to manipulate information and control the story to destroy someone's reputation. At the same time, Lively was dealing with a series of PR disasters herself. Missteps in her promotional appearances, awkward public moments, and a flood of negative headlines. Based on available information, Jones seemed convinced that Lively and her team would eagerly go along with her plan. By handing over this sensitive material, Jones knew exactly what she was doing. She was fully aware that the fallout wouldn't just target Jennifer Abel and Nathan. It would also engulf her own active clients, Wayfair and Baldoni. Let that sink in. She wasn't just going after her so-called rivals, she was throwing her own paying clients under the bus. Oh, my goodness. Jones clearly expected Wayfair to terminate their agreement with Jones Works. In other words, she was actively breaching the contract in hopes of getting fired. But despite her own despicable and wildly manipulative behavior, Jones started taking calculated steps to make it harder for them to cut her loose. She flooded Heath and others with email after email, completely unwelcome and unnecessary, long after the relationship had already shattered. The goal? To create a false narrative that she had always been involved and responsive, despite years of detachment. This was especially infuriating, because for weeks during the critical month of August, when the film premiered, Jones had been, in Europe, largely unreachable, except for her disastrous last-minute attempts to save face. Then, when she suddenly and unceremoniously fired Abel right in the middle of their crisis, leaving Wayfair completely stranded, communication between Jones and Wayfair collapsed entirely. She flipped between insisting they only speak through lawyers, and making erratic, almost unhinged threats. She demanded exorbitant payments for work she hadn't done and repeatedly insisted, against all evidence, that she was doing an amazing job. Although Wayfair and Boney didn't yet know just how far she had taken things, they saw her behavior as a material breach of their agreement. By the end of August, they informed her that the Jones Works contract was officially terminated. Now, Jones is suing, claiming they breached the contract. But Wayfair's argument is clear. She stepped outside the contractual clauses first, voiding the agreement. He's saying, "You breached the contract. I didn't. I'm done." By December 2024, the full extent of Jones's betrayal finally came to light. Her deliberate and unlawful disclosure of private, sensitive information allowed Lively's team to twist it into a false, damaging, and deeply disturbing narrative. Wayfair and Baldoni were irreparably harmed. The coordinated drop of Lively's fantastical civil complaint, paired with an explosive New York Times article, sent shockwaves through the industry. Wayfair and Baldoni were suddenly thrown into public disgrace, vilified overnight. Baldoni, once celebrated, was now wrongly labeled as a predator. Prestigious accolades were stripped away. Future projects were thrown into jeopardy. Wayfair was no different. It had been falsely cast as an enabler of misconduct. Their reputations, built over years, were destroyed in an instant, all because of Jones's reckless betrayal and Lively's team exploiting the chaos for their own gain. And to make matters worse, Jones became the mastermind behind a ruthless retaliation campaign against a victim of misconduct. As a result of her actions, Wayfair's very survival as a studio is now in serious jeopardy. On behalf of Jones Works, she blatantly disregarded every ethical and contractual boundary. So, here's the core of their argument. The contract terms explicitly state that Jones cannot share any information she obtained while working with Wayfair. This includes Jennifer's communications with the team, her conversations about Wayfair, her contacts with Baldoni, and even her professional relationship with Melissa Nathan. She was strictly prohibited from sharing any of this information with a third party unless required for legal proceedings, like a court case or a criminal investigation. But what did she do? The very same day she got access to Abel's phone, she handed over private, sensitive information to Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's publicist. That same day, Leslie called Melissa Nathan and smugly told her to prepare for a lawsuit. And why? All because Jones, unable to step aside, set this entire disaster in motion. It started with her refusal to follow instructions and keep quiet instead of talking to the Daily Mail. At first, she saw Wayfair and Boney as clients she barely cared about, but the moment she saw them gaining massive media attention, suddenly, she wanted to be the hero, and now she's being sued for breach of contract. Wayfair is arguing that, under the terms of the agreement, Jones Works was paid a hefty monthly fee in exchange for professional strategic communications and public relations services, delivered in alignment with mutually established goals. Instead, Jones completely failed to uphold her end of the deal. She ignored Wayfair's directives, acted recklessly, and violated their trust. And that's not all. The contract also had strict confidentiality clauses that Jones Works was legally bound to follow. Yet, as detailed in the lawsuit, Jones deliberately and maliciously broke those terms by handing over confidential information meant to remain private to third parties, including but not limited to Leslie Sloan. And she did this with one clear intention: to harm Wayfair and Boney. This wasn't a case of compliance with a subpoena. It wasn't a legal obligation. It was a choice. A calculated, destructive decision that violated every professional and legal boundary in the book. Jones Works and Jones themselves are fully responsible for any further leaks of this confidential information by third parties. Why? Because those third parties only had access to it as a direct result of Jones's blatant breach of the agreement. And according to Wayfair, these breaches weren't just minor missteps, they were incurable. Wayfair had either already fulfilled its contractual obligations or was excused from doing so because of Jones's reckless actions. As a result, they suffered real damages. But that's not the only claim being made. Wayfair is also suing for a second cause of action: breach of the implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. Essentially, this means that Jones acted in bad faith, sabotaging Wayfair's ability to benefit from the contract. She didn't just fail to uphold her end of the deal, she actively undermined it. And how? By deliberately and maliciously leaking confidential information to hostile third parties with one specific goal: to damage Wayfair and Baldoni. If this doesn't scream malice, I honestly don't know what does. I mean, seriously, what kind? Of PR agent who was deeply involved in the situation as it unfolded does this? It's like she suddenly decided to pretend she had no idea what was going on. Her lawsuit makes it seem like she wasn't involved in any discussions, didn't know a crisis PR team had been brought in, and was completely unaware of the agreements in place. But that's just not true. She knew everything. And then, after single-handedly setting this fire, she ran straight to Blake Lively and Leslie Sloan, playing the role of the hero. "Hey guys, do you need someone to save you? I just started this mess, but don't worry, I can help take them down." All because she was angry. Angry at Melissa. Angry at Jennifer. Angry at Wayfair. Angry at Justine. And in her mind, the enemy of her enemy became her ally. But what stands out the most to me is how clear the lawsuit is. They don't dance around it. They outright say there was no subpoena, no legal justification. Jones violated the contract, plain and simple. What she did was illegal and incurable. And honestly, this whole situation just shows the absolute extremes Blake Lively went to in order to frame Justin as a sexual predator. The lengths they went to are unbelievable. They were willing to go as far as breaking the law. Do you remember when Blake told Justin, "We work like the mob. We're like the mafia"? This is exactly that. Pure mafia-style tactics. The extortion, the threats, the "if you don't do this, I'll accuse you of something" strategy. It's straight out of a crime movie. And the idea that they can just strip people of their phones and assume they have the right to access confidential information when they are contractually prohibited from doing so? Absolutely insane. Honestly, I hope they get sued into oblivion, as Brian Friedman says. And speaking of that, this lawsuit was put together by Brian, Mitchell Schuster, and Kevin Fritz, so you know they're serious about taking this all the way. Here's the thing. I'm really glad to see this lawsuit. I truly hope everything finally gets sorted out because this entire mess has spiraled out of control. The lawsuit actually helped me break down how this whole chaotic situation unfolded in the first place. Shame on Stephanie Jones. No wonder that article basically painted her as someone who plants stories just to swoop in and fix the problem she created. That's exactly what she did. She ran to the Daily Mail, planted a story about Blake and Justin, and then immediately turned around like, "Hey Blake, I'm your hero. Let me help you." Why? Because at this point, she's desperate. She's already lost Chris Hemsworth and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, two massive clients. Can you even imagine how badly she needs someone like Blake, Ryan, or any of their Hollywood friends? They hold way more value to her than Justin, Baldoni, or Wayfair ever did. She's willing to do anything to climb higher, even if it means burning everyone else to the ground. It's honestly disgusting. This industry is so toxic, and I'm completely over it. I feel terrible for Justin, but at the same time, I'm also proud of him. He called it out in the lawsuit. He admitted it was a horrible decision to hire Blake Lively, and now she has to respond. There's no running from this. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and click the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye, guys.